Hi, folks. Welcome to the Power of Explainability, Building Trust and Agentic AI-powered support. I'm Rob O'Brien, and just so you know, this is not one of those webinars with a 50-slide deck and someone reading bullet points like they're under duress. This is going to be a podcast-style conversation, no slides, no charts, just three humans talking about one of the most important missing pieces in enterprise AI, explainability. If you're curious after this, feel free to shoot me an email at rob@Rezolve.ai. I'm going to drop that in the chat right now. And I'll send over anything you'd like to see, use cases, diagrams, or even pictures of our bus baby photos. You know, they're kind of cute, whatever you need. Today's focus is simple. If your AI is making decisions but can't show its work, that's not a teammate. That's just a rogue intern with admin access. Joining me today are two of my favorite humans. First up, Josh O'Brien. He's the head of Generative AI at Rezolve.ai, the guy who put a conscious inside our AI and probably lost sleep over it. Actually, he lost a lot of sleep over it. And also here is Josh Carrero. He's a solutions architect. And Josh, I got to be honest, I don't really know what a solutions architect actually does. So why don't you start us off by explaining what do you do around here?
Sure. So we do a lot here, right? It's a startup, so we wear a lot of different hats. Solutions architect broadly, I'm working with integrations. So when we have a new client that we're trying to onboard or that we're demoing for, or even an existing client that wants to do something new, if they want us to integrate with different third-party solutions, I would kind of bring some knowledge to the table about how we can integrate, how we've integrated in the past, and then do research on whatever it is that we're trying to integrate with so that we can get that working, right? But also, like I said, startup, so there's a lot more that we do there. I work with the AI team, I work with the customer success team and the sales team for a lot of different support, right? So there's a lot that I do, but you know, we have fun.
Excellent. And Josh, I skipped you going first because we share a last name, which is kind of awkward, but how about you introduce yourself now?
Let's start with the fact that you just forgot to make the slides, didn't you?
Nobody has time for slides, man. Come on.
I'm just messing with him. Yeah, my name's Josh O'Brien. I've been with Rezolve.ai for 4 years. I'm the head of Generative AI, so any of our AI innovation, think tanks, design, concepts, integrations, research, any of that falls under my hat. So I'm the guy that takes this product and makes it work for 200 different clients painstakingly, right? It's not always easy, but long story short, I lead the generative AI team here at Rezolve.ai. So anything that's Gen AI related flows through me.
Seems to me like the rest of us can go home. It seems like he's doing everything here. So let's start with the origin story. Explainability feels obvious now. But you know, at the time, nobody was asking for it. So when did that light bulb go off? Like when did one of you look at the chatbot and say, this thing needs to show its work? Like when we were kids doing long division in the classroom.
Yeah, so I think it started with just black boxes aren't good for anybody, and they weren't good for our team either. So when we try to kind of democratize what we do to the rest of our organization, so to the people that are implementing this for our clients and to the people that are responsible for solving issues that clients bring up their hands, they struggled because they didn't know why, and we weren't telling them why. So it almost started out as a troubleshooting tool for us internally. And so we started tracing the steps of what the bot was doing every step of the way. And this is, we're on V2 of explainability, by the way, so just to give everybody some background. But so in V1, we needed to see if knowledge wasn't surfaced because it didn't meet a particular threshold that was met, or if a flow wasn't chosen because there was a knowledge article that scored higher, but they wanted the flow to come into play. And so when we would get unexpected behavior that wasn't anticipated or desired by our clients, our team had to have a way to troubleshoot that. And so we started logging all of these decision points along the way. That way we would have visibility into it. And then we thought, well, why don't we make this available to our customers too, so they can kind of take what we're looking at, how we're troubleshooting, and understand exactly how this works.
So at that time, were others building this, or were you guys alone on that hill shouting, explain yourself, while the rest of the industry was like busy making chatbots do poetry and order lattes?
Yeah, there were a lot of high Ks at the time. JC, do you wanna take that question, or I can take it too?
Yeah, so like Josh was saying, eh, we did have a push internally as well, right? So we felt that there was a need to be able to explain that. I think some of the struggles that we have when you take the time to build something that's really cool and really powerful is being able to communicate it to your team, right? Because step one is making sure that our team can use it as well. And I think that we determined that there was some friction there, right? And we would have meetings and meetings and meetings explaining how this works. And when people weren't getting the answers that they were looking for, we'd have to sit down and try to explain how that answer came about so that we could know. So we could take actionable steps to get the answer that they wanted, right? And we kind of had that light bulb moment where we're like, hey, if we're having to have these meetings with our own team, going back and forth to try to get this right, we need to find a better solution here so that our customers can have a better experience as well.
And
So let's get
I'll kind of pick up on that just to follow up on what he said. So at the time we built this, there were people talking about explainability. I don't want to act like we invented the concept, right? But when people were talking about explainability, I'm going to rattle off a bunch of things that no one's ever heard of. They were talking about LIME, SHARP, counterfactuals, feature importance plots, partial dependence, attention flow, neuron attribution, influence functions, things that mean nothing to nobody, right? So there are a lot of people, and I mean, even today, I just got on a webinar for a product we were looking at a couple of days ago, and I won't mention the company, but I said, if we integrate with this product, we are transparent to our customers about how decisions are being made. Do you have some sort of explainable feature that we can look at? And they showed me a page that showed me the average latency per response time, right? So, and we'll get into what our explainability is at the time. So at the time we built this, nobody was thinking about it the way we were. And people are starting to think about it that way. People are starting to do chain of thought traces, dialogue agents, things of that nature. But I would say that we're definitely pioneers of the explain this to somebody that is not a doctorate in AI, right? Explain this to somebody whose job is knowledge management. Explain this to somebody that's a service desk technician, right? So that's the kind of explainable, when we talk about explainable AI, we are talking about. So sure, there were people doing it, but they were doing it for data scientists, not for anybody that's actually has an impact on the knowledge or the functionalities. And sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So let's get into the why. What happens without explainability? Because from an enterprise risk standpoint, a black box, as you mentioned earlier, AI is basically a compliance nightmare wrapped in an NDA. So like, where were the real cracks showing up in IT, HR, and ops before this was built in?
JC, I'll let you start that, and then I'll take the other end of that.
Sure. So I think there weren't like specific things that came up over and over again. It was more the procedural aspects. So back in our earlier version of our product, we had a very rigid structure that the bot had to follow for how it should be. We called it a search order. So the order that it's going to be searching your different knowledge bases and flows or out-of-box knowledge and stuff like that. Sorry. And so we had that all laid out basically. And so what we would run into over and over again is that people would expect the bot to trigger some sort of automation that they built. But the search order dictated that if there was something that was earlier in the pipeline that might have been relevant, that it's supposed to pick that first. And they might not realize, oh, hey, I have an automation for password reset, but we also ingested some knowledge on that earlier, and that's being triggered first. Right? Or the other way around, right? Maybe they're trying to get an answer, but we have this automation that was kind of relevant, but not really what they were hoping to trigger. And then they kept being like, well, why is this being triggered, right? And so at that stage in the product, what we were looking for was a way so that customers could see that information themselves and understand, okay, so this is why the bot made that decision. So now we know, okay, maybe we need to remove this so that the other thing can be triggered, right? And it was just trying to bring that to customers so they could make that decision themselves, so that it wasn't a situation of them having to come to us every single time the bot did something weird and being like, why is it working this way, right? Just kind of streamlining that for them a little bit.
I'm gonna follow up on that a little quick. I know we spent a lot of time on that question, but I think it's important, the why. There was an organization recently, and I'll say their name because it's big news. It's nothing that we're breaking or harping on them for, but Workday just are involved in a huge lawsuit for where they were doing screenings for potential applicants of jobs. And their AI was automatically, if I remember correctly, was automatically rejecting anybody over the age of 40, right? And so not only are they being sued and there's litigation against them, but anybody who turned that feature on, anybody who checked that box is also being litigated and sued and looked into, right? So the litigators have actually requested a list of everybody who enabled that feature. So now you're in an age discrimination lawsuit, and that could have been easily preventable by just having the AI verbosely explain its reasoning behind why they're rejecting a user. That could have been caught before the product was even productionized and released, because you could see the AI would say, or maybe it could have prevented it, because the AI could have said, hey, this person's over the age of 40, we're going to reject them, and that would have been a huge red flag.
They would have noticed it immediately, and they could have stamped it down before it ever became an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk a lot about trust, and for a really good reason, because trust at the executive level is about traceability. When your AI says, hey, I've resolved this ticket, and the CIO asks how, you better not be waving your hands around and mumbling about machine learning. So how much easier is it to gain leadership support when the system can actually show its chain of reasoning? And on the user side, have you ever seen a moment where the bot's explanation saved the situation? We kind of just talked about that.
Yeah. So for sure. So definitely leadership buy-in, and I would say more than leadership buy-in, compliance buy-in, right? Because people don't want to put themselves in a scenario where they're being litigated in a lawsuit and have to turn over information. And I'm not saying that it always has to be at that level, right? But if you've got an AI system that's making a decision in your organization, and you can't ask it why, like imagine if you had an employee doing the same thing. That they were making important decisions or decisions about something, and if you went up to them and asked why, they just didn't respond. It's just not a good way. If we're gonna say that AI has human level intelligence and AI can assist humans at a level to make them more efficient, and treat AI as an employee, like a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are onboarding and offboarding AI through their HR. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. But if we're going to do that, then we need to treat AI and have the same expectations of AI as an employee. So you need to be able to understand the decisions it's making. In our typical use cases, when we're talking about knowledge and automations and things of that nature, it's I look at it more from a knowledge management perspective than necessarily compliance. But if you're asking I'll give you a perfect example. And this is not a one-off example, but this is an everyday example where someone's saying, how many days off? Here's how many days do I get off for maternity leave? And the chatbot says, well, for maternity leave, you can have 6 weeks. And they're like, no, our policy is 8 weeks. And then so all of a sudden that's surfacing and showing them that, hey, we actually have a document out there that says 6 weeks. Like, we need to go update this, right? So it's actually exposing poor document management practices or outdated documents through reasoning that shows, hey, there's a conflict here, right? And sorry for taking the whole time on that route. It looks like you want to get to the next question.
No, you're perfectly fine. That's great examples. I do want to talk about tone for a second. Like when you're building explainability, how do you decide what it should look like? Do you want something like technical and dry, or more like a teammate walking you through a workflow? What are we looking for here?
I'm looking for Josh. Okay, I was going to start off by saying like a personal companion, someone who, I'm kidding, by the way. Go ahead.
He's lonely, guys. He's very lonely.
Just messing around.
So yeah, I was just going to say that's something that we definitely spent a lot of time thinking about, because it needs to be approachable. We definitely experimented with a few different things that or attempts that showed all the information, but were very information dense. And so at the end of the day, there are tools that we build for ourselves, and then there's tools that we build for our customers. And if it's going to be for customers, we have to have a higher standard as to how we can convey the information in as small a space as possible, right? We want them to be able to glance at it and get, if you're looking at explainability, there's usually a question that you have. There's a reason why you're looking at it, and we want to make sure that you can get that right away as soon as you look at it. And the bot does a lot of reasoning, right? So we need to present it in a way where you can see levels as to how it's going through its thought process, right? In a way that feels logical, so that if you were a person and you were trying to solve the problem yourself, you would look at that and go, yeah, that makes sense. That's how I would do it, right? And so that was tricky. It was hard to find a balance of getting it so that it was easy to follow, but still had all the information that we wanted to convey, right? But I think we struck in a middle ground there that we're pretty happy with.
And I can follow up on that a little bit. So we actually look at that almost two different sectors. We look at administrators and we look at end users, right? So what do we want to show to the end users and what do we want to show to the administrators? And for the administrators, we give them the whole thing, right? They can go through and comb through and look at exactly how the bot's making every decision. Now, the end users probably just want an answer to their question and maybe a little bit of understanding of how the bot came to that answer. So we, as far as the user interface side, we show a lot less of that reasoning and intelligence and explainability than we do to the administrator. But to follow up on how we chose what's important to show, is our explainable AI isn't just explainable AI. Our explainable AI is the actual intelligence engine, but that's driving the generative AI agents to make the decisions they're making. So not only are they explaining it to you, but they're explaining it to themselves. And we're taking that and anybody who's been in Gen AI knows it's not always just one call. Sometimes it's a chain of calls and different functionalities and different prompts and different agents and different things. So if there's an agent making a decision over here and then passing it off to an agent over here, this agent needs to know why this agent passed that off to them, right? So we're taking this explainability is really just the intelligence of the bot that's already there, and we're just making it transparent on the front end as well, right? Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I can imagine that this is won over some skeptics. Do you remember a moment when a customer, maybe one who came in skeptical about the product, and it was actually explainability that flipped the switch for them? That moment where someone went, this isn't just a bot. It's not just another AI. It's completely accountable.
Yeah, I mean, we had the biggest one that comes to my mind is we had a Fortune 50 company, right? One of the top 50 organizations in the United States chose our product because of the explainability feature. That was what won them over, right? And it's for sure, right? When we talk about why people choose our product, that transparency is very important. We take explainability seriously for a multitude of reasons, and we're one of the only organizations I know that'll show you the entire thought process. And I think a lot of organizations out there maybe don't even have insight into the thought process themselves, or they would make it available, right? But we take the entire natural language thought process behind the bot, where the bot's saying, I've looked at this flow, it's not applicable. This knowledge article has some information related, but it doesn't directly answer the question. The bot's actually verbosely saying that, right? And so for people to have that level of insight, sure, I mean, it's a big product feature for us. But even once you get past the sales side of things, right? Once you get past that initial wow factor, there's people go into this every single day, and they're reviewing conversations, and they're looking at the explanations, and they're updating their knowledge articles, and they're doing those kinds of things. And JC, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say that it's kind of magical when you have a moment where a customer has a question and you can show them in explainability and show them, hey, you can just look at this yourself, and they see it and they go, oh, like that moment where they realize it's just there, they have the answer to their question, and it's something that we make available to them, I think is huge, right? It clicks and it builds a sense of trust between us and them, right? Because they know that, again, it's not that black box, right? They know what's going on, and it's a real world example that they're running into where they're benefiting from, right?
So the other side of that is kind of funny is sometimes our internal team will come to us with a question. And so there's a side where you see the customer say, wow, but there's another side that pisses you off when you've got someone internal that comes to you and says, hey, this AI made this decision, I don't know why. Like, what do you mean you don't know it? Did you look at the explainability? And they're like, no. And they go look at it. So
like in the boardroom, it's not just about user trust. It's literally how companies, these large enterprises, you just spoke of one, It's how they're getting sign off from legal, compliance, security, HR, IT, and the CIO all in one go. It's really accelerating that executive buy-in. I want to speak for just a second on training and onboarding. It's a real use case that surprised me just in our conversation just now. So when Sidekick explains itself, we're not just helping users. I know we work with a lot of interns, a lot of people that are coming into this kind of fresh, and it seems like it becomes a real-time training tool for new IT agents and support staff as well. Have you seen teams use explainability to ramp faster, like onboarding a junior tech and letting them shadow the bot?
No, but it's a great idea. If I'm being 100% honest, and guys, by the way, this is we're doing this live, right? So I didn't review the questions. I don't like coming on and reviewing questions and sounding rigid and having a script. So that's kind of a beautiful side of this, is when he asks a question and my answer is nope, I haven't seen it.
No.
I was going to say, I think Josh and we do support for our ongoing customers as well, but most of our day-to-day is going to be focused on newer features, newer development, and that kind of stuff. So our CSMs are the ones that are our customer success managers, are the ones who are day in and day out interacting with customers. So they probably have some examples there, but that's not something that I've had a conversation with them about.
No, I mean, it's brilliant. It makes you think about how you could possibly loop that into the future into some kind of training program, right? So you not just for agents, but end user training, onboarding training, welcome to the team training kind of stuff. So it's every once in a while, not very often, Rob, but you have a good idea.
Thank you very much. So crystal ball time. We've spoke about explainability and how we're on V2, but what's in store for V3? What would V3 do that it can't do now? Like, is there a world where it would help drive change management? Could it eventually integrate with ITSM audits, impact workforce planning? What's next?
Hopefully your job. Just kidding again.
Ouch.
But we like to have fun, guys. I'm just kidding. But no, so I would say for V3 would be we're building a lot of custom agents for our customers, our clients, based on use cases that they have, whether that's dispatch approvals or security audits or different things like that. And so we don't really we have the same sort of logic. We have a framework that we've built internally that we use for all of our agents. We don't, and I'm going to go off the rails on that a little bit, but we don't use any of those third-party tools out there that you see. Whether I honestly, I can't even name them because we don't use them. Llama Index and things of that nature. But we build all of this internally, which is why we have the ability to be so transparent about what we're doing, because we control it all. There's nothing in this code that we don't understand, that we don't have the ability to edit, that we don't have the ability to explain, because we've built it. And I went on that rant and lost track of the question. Rob, what was the question?
The question was, what's next for explainability?
There's custom agents. We're using that same sort of framework and logic that we use just for our generative AI chatbot that we use for employee support. But there's use cases out there for like dispatch approvals or security analysis. And right now we don't have the UI available around that to kind of explain those custom agent use cases. And so I would say that's a big thing on our radar for V3 is taking that and making it in a UI friendly format that allows people to see the things we're doing for the custom agents. And maybe JC, maybe you could, and I can follow up on that more too, but my vision has always been, so if let's say you go into, someone asks a question, you see an answer you don't really like. There's a lot of back end agent prompts and stuff that's driving all of this intelligence, right? So let's say that you have an example like we showed before, where you have a knowledge article on password resets, and you also have a password reset flow. And so let's say that you went in and it triggered the flow, but in a certain scenario, you actually wanted it to trigger the knowledge article. So if you could go in that at explainability, and maybe there's a chat box on the right-hand side that says, how would you improve this? Or you can click on something that says improve or change, and you just type, hey, in this scenario that's for this chat, I wish you would have chosen this. And then so for customers, we can intelligently change the instructions that's given to their agents behind the scenes just based off the queries and things that they're asking. That way, the next time that comes up, they can simply, all they've had to say was, in this scenario, you should have chose this. And so that in the future, that they don't run into that again. And it's as simple as just natural language telling them that. Josh?
I was going to say the same thing there, just adding on to that a little bit. There's a lot of parameters and preferences that we built into the bot that you can change because everyone wants a slightly different flavor, right? Whether that be the tone that the bot is talking in, or the way it might prioritize some information versus another and stuff like that, or how it goes about searching information. So my point is, one of my big wish lists would be being able to have someone interact with a natural language chatbot to be able to customize that bot. So rather than go into a menu and go through settings, you could just say, hey, I wish that you responded this way, right? Maybe if you could respond with a little bit more empathy that time, or try to avoid that kind of topic, right? And being able to have the bot customize itself based off of that conversation, I think would be huge. The other thing that we are currently working on is tying explainability to knowledge gaps, right? So explainability being a great resource to identify when maybe you have a gap in your knowledge that so the bot's not able to answer certain questions, right? And right now we're logging all of that, but we want to take that a step further to try to get ahead of it and automate some of these solutions for that. So proactively notifying somebody when we identify that there's a trend in knowledge gaps, right? People keep asking this question and you don't have any information on it. Maybe we find the right resource and we let them know about it. And maybe we do a web search to try to find some relevant information that might be helpful, so they can just take that and add it into the knowledge base if they want to, right? So there's a lot we can do there to kind of proactively solve these problems for people that I think could really boost our efficiency.
Well, guys, as we head toward wrap up, please drop your Q&A into the Q&A, or please drop your questions into the Q&A. Again, live is hard. But if you're watching and you want to dig into any part of this, email me directly. Again, I'm going to have them drop that into the chat one more time. It's rob@Rezolve.ai, and I will send you any information that you want. But before we go, with 3 minutes left, why does explainability matter right now more than ever? And why should it be non-negotiable in every AI rollout for IT, HR, or enterprise ops?
I take that. I would say, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons, right? Whether it's end users, transparency, right? There's a lot of laws, right? There's data protection laws that say that end users have a right to an explanation. Let's go back to that Workday instance. If they would have had a right to an explanation there, they would have been able to flag themselves why they were denied. That's for your end users. You've got engineers and data scientists who may want to iterate fast on the knowledge that they have, or be able to explain the risk management, or all kinds of different things that they can get from that. You've got auditors who need evidence for compliance with safety or bias mitigation or even cybersecurity rules. You've got, and then you go all the way up the chain to business owners. There's trust. That's the biggest one, is trust, brand protection, ability to deploy AI in high stake context, right? Like, so a lot of people are avoiding those high stake scenarios with AI right now because they don't have that explainability. So if you could take a use case and prove out that, hey, this is transparent, I can understand why this AI is making this decision in a low risk context, you get much more comfortable with the high risk context. Now, from our side of what we use it for, which is the primarily, which is the knowledge management, the task automation side of things, it's important for the end user experience, right? So if you can quickly iterate, even before you roll this out, you can go to your bot and ask your questions. You can take a deployment time from 6 months to a couple weeks if you have that transparency and trust and fast iteration available.
Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up. To everybody watching, if your AI can't explain itself, it probably shouldn't act. But when it can't, it builds trust, it teaches teams, and it earns its seat at the table. We're going to send out this recording shortly, but until next time, Josh O'Brien, Josh Carrero, thank you guys so much for being on here, and keep asking your bots to show the work. It's really paying off out there.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.